Sometimes a teaser single is more than just a song. It's like an invitation to contemplate. What is the thing that we're going to be hearing next? This is now going to be our third The Smile album. In theory, this was like a one-off project with two members of Radiohead and a drummer from the Sons of Kemet, and they were just going to like do a little goof, have some kind of midlife, three-quarters life crisis, and then jump back to Radiohead. But no, we're 3 albums deep, and on each of their 3 albums, they have these singles. And these singles announce the soundscape and the feeling of the project that comes up. So, when I hear it, I ask myself, what will it be? Will it be glitchy? Will it be rock? And here is what this single said to me. Now first, let's just remember, You'll Never Work in Television Again was the first single off their first album. You know, it's super hard and guitar and proggy and rocky and time signatures and screaming and that kind of like exuberance. You know, I've done reviews of all their albums, all their singles, so go back and visit it if you're interested. And then really that contrasted so greatly with the first single off the second album, Building Hectic, which was way more contemplative, way more mature. If You'll Never Work in Television Again is some dudes excited to play music with another dude, and they're just so exciting and brimming with energy. Bending Hectic was like those same dudes realizing, well, you know, what if this isn't like a one-night stand? What if this is like a relationship, you know? And maybe we should like have a favorite restaurant and like a board game that we play together, you know? What do you say? We bring out King of Tokyo and see where this goes, you know? Sure, I'll meet your friends. You know, it got a lot more serious. So what about this third project with this third single? What does it say about what's coming up next? That's what I'm going to break down to you. But I'm not just going to break down the music and lyrics. I will do that. I'll break down the music and lyrics, and then the artwork, and then the music video. Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor who I don't usually beg for engagement, because it used to be clicks are what matters, but clicks mean nothing. And now it's all about comments. For some reason, YouTube is just changing everything on us again. So please leave a comment if you like this at all. Fortunately, I have a little cheat. If you just want to say anything, you can just say AVAA, and I will like that comment. And that just, you know, that's like a way you know that I'm reading it, and that's a way you can say something if you don't have something big to say, and that way YouTube will know that I exist. So let's start off with the music and lyrics. Music. Before we even get into it, let's acknowledge that we are having another song produced by Sam. Okay. I thought his name was Sam Pettis Davis. It's not. It's Sam Petts Davies. And we should put some respect on the man's name. Lord knows I've been trying. I reviewed that Puma Blue album he produced. I loved it. I reviewed that Marika Hackman album, which, where are you at? Hey, music, YouTube, music, internet, how did you all sleep on that album? It's so good. And a lot of the reason it's so good is that Sam Petts Davies is such a good producer. So here he is on this project, and I'm happy. I'm happy because even though I love Nigel Godrich, it's always weird to me to, like, however much Radiohead is in a non-Radiohead project, it makes me feel anxious that we're not going to get Radiohead. So I'm happy there. Speaking of sort of personnel, Tom Skinner, the drummer from Sons of Kemet, he's still the drummer here, along with the main songwriters of Radiohead, Johnny Greenwood and Tom York. But he's sort of getting Phil Selway on this project. Phil Selway, the drummer for Radiohead, is a great rock drummer, truly spectacular, but as the band grew, as Tom York became more and more disillusioned with guitars or whatever it is that he said, as they got more glitchy and gloopy and bloopy and doopy, all of a sudden you have tracks like, I don't know, 15 Step, where you watch the poor guy try to play that song in concert. He could do it because he's a great drummer, but he is working super extra hard, and on some songs, he's just not there, or he just pops up at the end. I think this is a sign of maturity for The Smile, in which you have this drummer, the kind of hot new young guy who's playing with the older dudes, to like get Selway, to have a way reduced presence. And I sort of imagine, like Tom Skinner and Phil Selway having a conversation, and just, I sort of imagine Phil Selway. I doubt he smokes, but pretend he smokes, and Skinner comes out. They saved you till the end, didn't they? Oh, I didn't know. I thought I was their new drummer. Yeah, we're all their drummers until the goddamn computers come back. We'll have you get to play again? Only if you play with the computers. That's a little scene I have in my head. Why doesn't Phil Selway have a British accent? I don't know. Okay, so what is it that the music actually tells us? Well, one thing is it feels a lot more atmospheric, a lot less, in a lot of the ways that like Bending Hectic announced a more epic cinematic feel, this announces a much more electronic, I don't want to say Kid A because it doesn't have the gloaming of Kid A word that I learned from Radiohead. It doesn't have the gloaming, dark, ominous feel. It still has that lightness of the smile. It's like the smile itself, whether it's the reference to the Ted Hughes poem or the fact that there's a young drummer or whatever it is, it's just like that always counteracts Tommy Sadface, you know, like Tom York's sadness is always buoyed up by the smile and by the happiness here. But it is feels a lot less like just people playing music together, a lot more of a constructed concept. One thing I like about the soundscape is that it's perfect. Like, okay, so I listen to music in different ways. So the first time I listened was on headphones, and I was just grooving, you know, because you put in your headphones, and it's like boom, 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 boom. It's blooping all over your head. You know, I had this kind of image in my head the whole time of like a Tom and Jerry style cartoon, but like a cyber cat. I had this image of like this. So maybe you're an illustrator or something. Maybe could you do animation? Could you do an animation music video of this that's different than the other one of like a cyber cat who's like trying to steal food, and there's like a cop, like a RoboCop dog who's like chasing him around. That's the way that it felt to me. Boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. So that's really cool. But also, I listened to it out on the porch. You know, so I have a covered porch. It's really nice because in the summer rain, it just makes all this noise, and I have this boom, boom, boom. But you know, my 2-year-old is sitting there playing with her 2 favorite action figures: Godzilla, Jeremy, Hillary, Boob, Fudd. You know, Nowhere Man. She's sitting out there. She's playing with them. I'm listening to this music. I'm reminded of my 2 favorite movies with rain in them. My 2 favorite movies that use rain the best: Rashomon, the first Jurassic Park. And just this whole time, I listened to the song on repeat like 5, 6 times, 7, 8. I don't even know how many times because it keeps looping over and just goes so nicely there. So let's go through the song. Let's kind of go through it, not quite second by second, but almost. With these great programmed, arpeggiated, generally descending notes that also go up a little bit. Fun thing to try. Listen to this, and then listen to 365 by Charlie XCX. It actually goes really well together. Boom, ba-doom, 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 ba. Dun, 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 dun. One thing this song constantly does is that it constantly falls apart. Much like Bending Hectic, it is a sort of stop and start song. It's not bound by your dancing. It's not bound by your concept of how a song should be. So we had this boom, ba-doom, 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 and then we have the lyrics. Now listen, it's perfect. Tom York lyrics, Don't Get Me Started, is the perfect, it is as though AI created a Tom York title, okay? Because it's not quite a cliche, but it's a fixed expression that people say in conversation that can be taken out of context, used poetically as a way to be an investigation into the meaning of this thing that we say without thinking. Don't get me started. I'm developing more theories of Tom's lyricism. I think he primarily has 2 different modes. Well, I guess he has 3. There's the more personal mode, which, you know, you saw a lot on In Rainbows, but outside of In Rainbows, I'm not sure how much we see the personal mode. But basically, he's either Winston or Big Brother. I'm talking about the George Orwell book, 1984. You know, when he's Winston, he's the disaffected cog in an uncaring machine who's like aware enough of the evils of society to sort of look into it, but not a really effective person at fighting them. He has trouble explaining them. So the way that he does is just by sort of repeating things back. That's the sort of one way that Tom York seems to approach and attack modern society, and especially the sort of dehumanizing, corporatized surveillance state and conservative ghouls who have no accountability. roles with no accountability that are in this song. Which goes to the second position that he takes. So sometimes he's Winston, and sometimes he sings as being a brother. So, Bing Brother, the worst search engine. Yeah. It's too bad Bing isn't a big, because that's actually a pretty good pun. Bing Brother, you know, like they watch all your search. Jesus Christ. I don't even have my water cup up here. I'm just going to keep going. He's either Winston or Big Brother. And when he's Big Brother, he's still very distant. There's that distance, but he's the enforcer of the dystopian reality. Speaks in these fixed expressions and spends a lot of time talking about the things that he doesn't do. You know, trying to get you to do that double think, you know, try to get you to believe something and not believe it, which I think is Don't Get Me Started, which is why I think the first lyrics of the song is I'm not the killer. When Tom York sings I'm not the killer, you are supposed to understand that the person singing that is the killer. This great descending melody with molto reverb. So much reverb on this voice. It's beautiful. And then on the second half does his great Tom York falsetto. Don't get me started. So I'm not the killer, don't get me started. This then leads into more straightly delivered I'm not the villain, choose someone else. So it's interesting, you know, I think this is from the perspective of a ne'er-do-well government agency or politician. I don't know, I'm picturing like a Boris C. Johnson kind of guy, sort of a Trumpy sort of dude. I'm not the villain. And then it says you don't get to. And this is what I'm talking about, the falling apart thing. Whereas I think on the first Smile album, you know, they're just rocking, they're just having fun. But here they're going so far as to just stop. You don't get to, this cuts off the lyrics. And then like a crashing building, boom, 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 boom. It just stops. And then comes back, boom, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. And these lyrics, nothing is triggered, nothing is silent, don't pull me backwards, no, you don't get to. Don't quite understand these lyrics. Again, very Tom York-y. It feels to me like it's, again, it feels to me like a sort of conservative talking point that, you know, that triggering doesn't exist and that dog whistles don't exist and that not to be pulled. But maybe this is from the position, of the Winston, you know, getting pulled backwards. I don't quite know. Whatever it is, however you read this song, it's really in that Tom York dystopian world where everything doesn't quite connect and people feel distant and alien and low and it falls apart again. And then finally, they made you wait, didn't they? Yeah, they did, Phil. You warned me. I didn't listen. You know, and finally we get Skinner coming back in playing. Oh my God, though, they use him so well because he's playing these like low muted toms, okay? If you ever have a drum set, you sometimes have to do things like put pillows in the bass drum so that it makes a thump as opposed to a dong. And this feels like they put the pillow on top of the tom and then he's playing the pillow. It's just so muted and it almost creates like a polyrhythm because it's like dum 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 dum, and then it's like doom 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 doom. It sort of goes together. It sort of doesn't. Your force means nothing is the line said over and over and over again. And this is where I think Tom York's lyricism is the most interesting because it doesn't matter what side you're on. This line is either a statement against authoritarianism or from the perspective of authoritarianism. So if you are somebody who is a subject of an authoritarian, then their force can't get you because even though, you know, they can crush your body, but they can't break your soul. Release the rhythm, right? Like that's a fundamental idea. You know, you can't, that means nothing. Or it's from the perspective of that authoritarian saying that whatever kind of force you have, it means nothing. It's a pretty interesting idea. It's a pretty interesting idea to repeat over and over again. Your force means nothing. Because in our modern society, you know, in most society, since the first monkey picked up a bone and smashed it on the ground and threw it up into the sky and it turned into a spaceship. Since that first time, force has been the main way that human beings express power and domination. And so this force is meaningless. and then it falls apart again, but the drums don't start thumping, and that's where the song just gets so great. This is where I get super excited. This little section with, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half left, where we have this falsetto, "You don't get me," over and over again, which might be someone saying they feel misunderstood, or it might be someone resisting the authoritarian regime saying, "You don't get to me," or it might be the authoritarian regime saying that they're misunderstood and that's why they're not the killer. All right, doesn't matter. There's always 5 different ways to read Tom York's lyrics, and then the drums just get more and more intense. There's like more than just one tom playing. There's almost like Hans Zimmer blah sounds in the back, a couple of blahs, and then it just falls entirely apart. Even the drums fall apart, no sound, and then a little lilting keyboard comes in, almost like a 21st century Baba O'Reilly, the way that it sounds. And more, "Your force means nothing," little feedback sounds, voice sounds, 1 minute left. Now a different keyboard comes in with a rising arpeggio that kind of fades in and out. In and out. This little rising arpeggio is like a note of hope, whereas the rest of it's like boom, 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 boom. This is just rising. It's this hopeful melody, and everything sort of starts to fade away until there's just these drums that are even further away, and the original creeping synthesizer comes back, but it's much more muted. So I think it's announcing some pretty exciting things. I think the development, the usage of drums, the usage of space, the usage of breaks and pauses, this kind of perspective. I think even more exciting, perhaps, or another signal exciting, is the cover art that they used for this. I didn't get this on vinyl because I'm not that hip enough. But this is not at all like their very organic map-like imagery that they had before. This kind of X. I don't think it's supposed to be Elon Musk reference. It could be, but it's interesting because it's like op art, which is like that plays with your perception, optical art. These little shapes are impossible. They're kind of like MC Escher, and the orange and the blue. I don't know if this is on purpose, but in most like movies these days, good guys are blue and bad guys are orange. It used to be blue and red, but that's the way it happens to be. Look up sometime. Movie posters, blue and orange. It'll blow your mind. You'll see every single movie poster for the past 20 years has had blue versus orange. And then we get to the video. The video directed by someone named Weirdcore, has done a lot of stuff with Aphex Twin. Very cool, cyber, psychedelic. I think this helps me to understand where this album's going because it's very Kid A adjacent, but again, it doesn't feel like it's just trying to be Kid A. These random shapes form into buildings. Like this formlessness forms into something, but everything's always very dissociated. These outlines of these people, this very kerned image where it like kind of like makes your eyes hurt and flashes, and the outlines of businessmen who could be like walking straight off the cover of Meeting People is Easy from 1997. All these more people appear in a building, and then this triangle appears. And it's like triangle appears, and like the triangle almost becomes like the obelisk from 2001, some kind of mystical element. There appears to be Tom York's face in one of the avatars of the people walking around. The triangle appears more often, it becomes a pyramid. People get sucked in. And as it goes away, as the music goes away, everything goes away. And then the drums come in, and then everyone starts coming out of the pyramid. Now there's more color in the background. And there's this and in the video, I just noticed a slight vocoder sound on one of the "Don't Get Me." Was that in the title version too? Was that in the Spotify version, or was that just in the YouTube version? I don't know. And then we get this awesome, super spooky image of this like outlined blackness with just bright lights. And that's where I understood where the aesthetic of this came from. The scariest image in vintage gaming, the Space Invader dude. Have you guys seen the Space Invader dude? Have you ever seen a Space Invader cabinet at the arcade? That's the horrifying thing that's trying to kill you. That thing lives with us on Earth, okay? That is terrifying. And I think the blue and the orange, I think this might be the same basic idea. I don't know, I think Space Invaders is a kind of theme that would really appeal to Tom and the gang. And eventually that thing starts chasing people around and then sort of starts becoming them, kind of a sort of cyber horror thing, becomes the person, and then it goes back into the pyramid, and there's a full color explosion. It seems to be shooting out of someone's mouth, like this 1 point perspective going right into the sort of mouth, and the pyramid landscape, pyramid, kind of a mountain, kind of I guess it's kind of Kid A. Okay, fine. We can say it's Kid A. I just don't want you to get excited. I don't want you to start saying, this is going to be their Kid A, because there's only one Kid A, and it was Kid A, and it was great. But there's this warmth here. There's an actual animated eye, a hand-animated eye that's thrown into all this computer-generated stuff, and then gets fully de-resed. And then at the end, there's two pyramids that are together that really appear to make the Star of David. So is this whole thing about Gaza? Oh, Jesus. That would make sense, actually. I mean, jeez, let me go back and read the lyrics again. Is this whole thing about Gaza? Is that what this is? I don't know. It's okay. I'm not going to get into it. You can get into it. You think about it, okay? You think about if all these lyrics could just pertain to that. You know, it does matter because obviously what's happening in Gaza, all the innocents dying and all that is very important. But also just in general, let's not forget, Tom York also wrote I Will. Tom York is always writing about war crimes and about people who are dying in other places and how we need to think about it. So I think it can be, I think it is very possible to read this specifically from the perspective of someone saying, you know, I'm not the killer and all that. So look for someone, choose someone else. You don't get to all that. And you could easily say it's that. Or you could say it's more universal. Whew, I almost made it political there. All right, well, there's my thoughts. I think this is going to be a great new album. I can't wait. I'm simultaneously so freaking mad they keep pushing the Radiohead clock back, but I'm so excited because the smile is so good. So whatever. The great thing is Radiohead's so good that if they're all in their 80s and they release an album, it's going to be like that Johnny Cash thing he did at the end of his life. Like, it's just going to be good. So just hang in there, I guess. All right. I mean, I guess I could go entirely into the Gaza thing, but don't get me started. There's the camera.